Last week's reading ended with those wonderful words. You have received without paying, so give without being paid. And we talked about what it was the disciples had received. Well, today it's all about what they need to give, because the reading comes from Matthew chapter 10, verses 26 to 39. And this is, if you like, the consequences of what is going to happen to any person who steps out into the world attempting to follow Christ, attempting to live by the values that Jesus has told us of universal love, that all matter, that all are loved, all are important, and all deserve respect. So the reading. So do not be afraid of people. Whatever is now covered up will be uncovered, and every secret will be made known. What I am telling you now in the dark, you must repeat in broad daylight, and what you have heard in private, you must announce from the housetops. Do not be afraid of those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather, be afraid of God, who can destroy both body and soul. For only a penny you can buy 2 sparrows, but not one sparrow falls to the ground without your Father's consent. And as for you, even the hairs on your head have all been counted. So do not be afraid. You are worth much more than many sparrows. If anyone declares publicly that he belongs to me, I will do the same for him before my Father in heaven. But if anyone rejects me publicly, I will reject him before my Father in heaven. Do not think that I have come to bring peace to the world. No, I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. I came to set fathers against their sons, daughters against their mothers, daughters-in-law against their mothers-in-law. A man's worst enemies will be the members of his own family. Whoever loves his father or mother more than me is not fit to be my disciple. Whoever loves his son or daughter more than me is not fit to be my disciple. Whoever does not take up his cross and follow in my steps is not fit to be my disciple. Whoever tries to gain his own life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will gain it. Now, some of these sayings are recorded also in Luke's Gospel, and taken at face value, they seem quite harsh. I mean, we have to remember that the language of Jesus' time was extraordinarily black and white. There were no shades of grey of, well, you've got to love this person a little bit more, or make me the top priority. It's you either love me totally and hate the other thing, or it's not going to work. It has to be black and white. So the words can come across a little bit harsh. I'm not trying to water them down or make sure that they sort of fit my own view, but that's literally the truth, that there is a language issue which is simply just very black and white. So Jesus says to the disciples, you have received without paying, so give without being paid. And what is it they're called to give? Well, back to the Last Supper and that discourse we had in John, Jesus tells the disciples they must love one another. The characteristics of those who follow Jesus are people who love one another. And not only one another, the group of disciples, but all people. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Everybody matters. Everybody is important. Everyone deserves respect. Everyone is your brother or your sister, because God loves you and God loves everybody. And that universality is, for me, the most amazing thing about the kingdom of heaven here on earth and what Jesus comes to bring. But Jesus in this reading is talking to the disciples about what will happen to them when they go and live that message. They're going to get opposition. They're going to get people angry with them. They're going to have people, and certainly for first century Christianity, people who will kill them. And this, unfortunately, is still true in our world today, that people will be killed and tortured and hurt in all sorts of mental and physical ways because of the things they believe, and not just Christians either, but people of faith who will be abused by others who do not adhere or do not understand, who are challenged and frightened by the things that are said or by what is represented. It's probably an eternal truth that people, and that's us, not other people, all people, have prejudices and fears, and sometimes when others act in a different way, we feel challenged, threatened, and our response is not of love, but is of intolerance and hurt in the worst case. That isn't my context. If I speak of being a Christian to people, if I speak of the love of God that I've experienced in my heart, I'm not going to be physically abused, although there could be situations when that might happen, I suppose. But that isn't my context. My context is much more one of indifference, but also of ignorance, in as much as, well, why is that even a thing? It's like if you talk to people about anything that you are passionate about, but which is quite a niche interest. You may engage people's interests a little bit, but if you're talking about your hobby that somebody else doesn't particularly enjoy, their eyes may glaze over. Now, one thing that will compel you, though, in all situations is, even if it's something that you don't think you'd like to do yourself, if somebody talks about it as a life-enhancing activity, and they speak about it with passion and conviction and utter truth that for them this is amazingly important and it matters, it's going to pique your interest. You're going to be interested because it's attractive to see another human being transported from normal life to one of excitement and joy and laughter and happiness. Those things that make other people happy are interesting to us. Now, Christianity isn't about making people happy per se, but it is about a realization of what God has done for us in the person of Jesus. That through that act set in a particular place and time in history, all people everywhere can understand how much they are loved by the God who made them. That God is real, that God is within us and around us and everywhere, and that it's beautiful. And that the results of understanding that relationship with God are peace and unity and light and life. But what will happen, of course, is if you do live a life like that and you espouse those values, you will inevitably, of course, challenge people who don't live by those values. And that challenging will often be harsh and clumsy and inflammatory. And the language about the people being close to you being most affected is true, because, of course, people close to you have opinions about yourself, have fixed ideas about the person that you are, and will find it the most difficult to understand that maybe you've moved away from the values of that family group into something bigger and, for you, better. And the more passionately you talk about it to those who have known you for a long time, either they will think, well, that's wonderful, how tremendous for you, or they'll think that's really crazy and disown you. And that is still the case today. So when Jesus talks about coming to bring a sword, it is to divide people. It really is. Why would you want to do that? Why do you want to spend your time with complete strangers? Why do you want to be loving to somebody when the world teaches you need to be hard? Why would you want to give away the things that are yours to other people? That's crazy, isn't it? Why would you deny yourself riches and status and power for something else? Why would you spend your time doing that? These are all the questions that will be asked by people who feel threatened by those who show love to others, because it makes other people feel bad. It makes them feel, well, I should probably be like that, but I've got a whole life, a whole tradition which teaches me that actually that's the way to get hurt. That's a silly thing to do. Life is surely all about building up more things and more things, generating a sense, a true illusion of stability and of importance and value by the things I own, or the way I live my life, or the holidays I go on, or whatever I possess. All of these things. And so when Jesus says at the very end, whoever tries to gain his own life will lose it, but whoever loses it for his life for my sake will gain it. That was a literal truth in first century Christianity. But of course, it's also true for us today. If you strive to gain your own life, i.e., you work for the things that you think, that's going to make me happy, that's going to keep me safe, that's going to be the thing I can rely on in my old age. Well, these are all illusions, because life is just one moment followed by another in this physical realm, at least. But the body will give up on us. We will eventually die. And then we will be with God. If we understand and see the glory of God. Now, I don't personally think that judgment comes necessarily in this life. We hear in that phrase where Jesus says, if anyone declares publicly that he belongs to me, I will do the same for him before my Father in heaven. But if anyone rejects me publicly, I will reject him before my Father in heaven. Well, yeah. I mean, if you can stand in the face of God at the end of your life, when you leave this plane, this what we call reality, this experience, which we call life, and we enter a new life when this body ends, if then we can stand before God like Thomas did with Jesus in the upper room and not say, my Lord and my God, confronted with glory and beauty and purity and light, if we can still then say, no, thank you, well, that's your choice. I personally find it impossible to imagine how anybody could feel that way. Having experienced God blow through my life, change me utterly, lift me from depression through to songs of joy in an instant, confirm to me in a way that is still real 40 years later, still fresh and real and vibrant and true, still the bedrock of my life. I don't see how anyone could really meet with God and not be totally blown away. Find absolute peace and assurance in the fact that you discover you are made by the God who made all things, and that God loves you beyond words. Every hair on your head is counted. Now, in my instance, of course, that doesn't account to many hairs, but it's a good metaphor. Every single atom of our being, formed from the dust of the stars, formed by the God who created all things. We are made by God, loved by God. And for me, the message is always one that if you can discover that for yourself, life is going to be so much better. Not that you won't get ill, not that you won't get made redundant, not that you won't face poverty, abuse, all sorts of things that happen to all of us in life at some stage or in some form or other. Not that life is a bowl of cherries. None of those things. Because again, that's what the world thinks is important. True happiness comes, I believe, from simply understanding what you were truly made to be and who you truly are. And what we truly are is God's loved child. Special, unique, and totally and utterly loved. So be at peace. Be filled with joy. And discover the love that God has for you.